Yes, it is. There we go. And suppose I'm supposed to push a little button over here. There we go. Now, this morning we're going to look at Luke chapter 13, beginning with verse 22 to 30, and talk a little bit about heaven. Jesus continued traveling through the villages and cities, teaching as he went on his way to Jerusalem. Someone asked him, "How many people will find the life that you're talking about?" He answered, "The narrow gate is the one we should strive to enter. However, few will be able to make that choice. Walk down that path and find the reward at the end." Once the door to the house has been shut, you can pound on the door all you want. You can cry out for me to open the door, but I will not. I will deny that I know you. You will even try to build yourselves up by saying, "We ate and drank together, and we stood listening when you were teaching in the streets." And I will deny that I know you. I will turn to you and say, "Go away, because you do not walk in the ways of God." You will suffer much when you do not enter the kingdom of heaven. From outside, you will look in on Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and all the prophets, eating at the table of feasting. Gathered at the table with them will be people from north, south, east, and west, enjoying the feast that God has waiting for us. Those who do not stand out in this life might well be the ones who shine in the next, and those who shine here might not be noticed at all there. So let's talk about heaven. Jesus in this passage believes that heaven exists, or that there is a place of reward, a place of feasting, that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob will be there along with all the prophets. And he even talks about the fact that there will be people there from north, south, east, and west, and we're assuming that's all around the world, okay? But he also implies that something outside of heaven exists, that some people will be outside looking in. It's an interesting concept, and we've called that heaven and hell for years, but just this concept that there's going to be a place where there's feasting, and then there's going to be this other place that is outside where the people can look in but not participate in the feast. So in Jesus's thinking, in his teaching, he tells us there's a place after this life. Some will enter that place, some won't. He is in this situation clearly talking to the Hebrew people. He's telling them, some of you are going to make it, some of you aren't. And he also implies, as I said, that some of the non-Hebrew people will get in as well. Entrance into this kingdom seems to be based on some decision that Jesus makes. He's the one who makes the call, okay? He's the one who people knock at the door and they can't get in because he says, no, it's too late to get in. So he calls the way in a narrow gate, in contrast to the wide gate. Matthew 7:13 says, "For the gate is wide and the way is easy that leads to destruction, and those who enter by it are many." Again, what do we find inside this place where people outside are looking in? First of all, Jesus is present there. He's welcoming people in. There's a feast with the prophets and others from around the world. Status is defined differently, okay? People who had status here on earth might not have it in heaven, people who didn't have status here on earth might well have it in heaven. Okay, those who stand out in this life, they won't have that distinction necessarily there. Some who don't stand out in this life will have it. Right? So let's talk about the easy way. The Hebrew people, to them, the easy way was, well, I'm Hebrew. I was born a Jew, and we are the chosen people, and I'm going to definitely be a part of anything and everything that God has in store because we're his people. Yeah, Jesus wasn't necessarily agreeing with that, nor did Paul later on when he talked about, the whole rite of circumcision wasn't the calling that gets you into heaven. The easy way could also be the people who choose to follow what they think is right. The Old Testament in the book of Judges said, in that time there was no king in Israel, and everyone did what they thought was right. And interesting, seems like today we're living in that same sort of society here in America, where everybody is basing their right and wrong on what they think ought to be the right and wrong. Not so much what God thinks is right and wrong, or what anybody else outside themselves thinks is right and wrong. It's all based upon their own belief. Solomon in the book of Proverbs says, there is a way that people in their own minds think is right, but that way of thinking leads a person to destruction. Those outside looking in, Jesus said, are in a state of destruction because they took the easy way. Rather interesting way of looking at it, okay? The door in Jesus's story here, or teaching, the door closes at some point. He says, some will come claiming to have known me, eaten with me, and I will say, I don't know you, go away. Luke chapter 6, verse 46 to 49 says, I wonder why you reach out to me calling me Lord, and yet you do not follow my teachings. To what do I compare a person who listens to my teaching and then goes out and acts accordingly? I say they are like a man of wisdom who built his house on a firm foundation, and when the storm came, filled with wind and rain, it forcefully beat on the house and yet did not cause it to collapse. On the other hand, when people listen to my teaching and go out and do not act accordingly, they will be like a foolish man who did not build on a firm foundation, and the storm forcefully beat on that house, and the whole house collapsed. What's the foundation that we build on? It's the foundation of the teachings of Jesus Christ. It's the foundation of Jesus, who is the cornerstone for us. I remember a number of years ago, but it just sort of stuck with me. I heard Billy Graham talking to a group of pastors, and he said, don't worry about the things in the Bible you can't understand until you've put into practice everything you do understand. Rather interesting quote, okay? Because everybody often opens their Bible up and go, well, I don't understand this. And so that sort of gives them the freedom in their mind to no longer try to put in practice everything else. Well, we should put in practice what we can understand, and maybe then we'll have a better understanding of those things we can't. So the question to me then comes down to, when does the door close? Okay, I mean, obviously, there are people in this world who literally say this. They're waiting until the last minute to give their life to Jesus, hoping that they will be able to live their whole life any way they want to, and then at the last minute, like the thief on the cross, give their lives to Christ and spend eternity in heaven. Okay. Does the door close when we die? Does it close at the end of time when Jesus comes back in all his glory? Does it close when we're standing in front of the throne of judgment? I really don't have the specific answer, although I do have an idea. I first of all do believe clearly that there is a point where that door closes, a moment in time. And maybe that moment in time is while we're still living. While somewhere along the line, we choose to no longer seek the narrow gate and live by the teachings of Jesus. And we turn our back on all of that. Whether we have ever given our lives to Christ or not, I think once we've done that, probably aren't able to fully turn back, but I've seen a lot of people act like they're turning back and pretend like they don't believe in God anymore. And so are we in that situation where we no longer seek the gate, or are we looking for that gate and seeking to live by the teachings of Jesus? Or do we become comfortable with the easy way and our way of doing things? I've seen plenty of people over the last 50 years of my church life who are very active in church, very involved in everything that's going on, and very involved, it seems, in their faith. And then all of a sudden they reach a certain age and they say, oh, we'll leave it to the younger ones. We're done. We've put in our time. And I'm thinking, I'd like to say that as a pastor. I'd like to say, I've put in my time. So now can I just go play golf on Sunday? No, I can't. Okay, I don't have the freedom to stop following the teachings of Jesus Christ. Maybe the time is that moment when, for whatever reason, by God's timing and judgment and design, we have made the choice to harden our hearts to the things of Jesus and his ways. I don't know. I don't know the details of that, but I've seen people do that over and over again. What is the time when that door closes? The criteria of getting in through that door, interestingly enough, is as much as from an evangelical perspective or from a modern Christian perspective, we want to say, give your life to Jesus Christ. But a lot of times that becomes, okay, come forward, say a prayer, give your life to Jesus Christ, and then continue to live however you want to live. You know, it really is a statement by Jesus in this passage and in other places that we need to believe in him. But we can't stop there. We have to put into practice what we have heard him teach. This is why we go out and evangelize to people. This is why we go out and encourage them to walk in the ways of Jesus, because primarily he did say, I don't always like it, but this is what he said. He's the only way to heaven. Without him, we can't get there. And I would love to be able to say to other people, oh, well, it's really not that exclusive. Maybe you can get in if you do this or if you do that. But the Bible doesn't give us that option. The Bible makes it clear that's what Jesus taught. But he says that knowing him, eating with him, spending time with him doesn't accomplish the whole thing if we don't go out and live according to his teaching. It's one of the reasons why I think James, who was counteracting, if you will, some of the teaching of the Apostle Paul, they were talking about it. If nothing else, Paul was saying it's grace alone. And James said, well, the way I think about it, I'll show you that I believe by the way that I live. My works will demonstrate my faith. I grew up, I've probably told you this before, I grew up in the Missouri Synod Lutheran Church, and they did not want to talk about good works at all, because good works was anathema to them. Okay, it was horrible, it was evil. And I grew up not thinking that we needed to do good works. And then all of a sudden I was preaching one night at our church. It was a Lenten season. It was in Woodlake. I remember it, just as vividly as the day that it happened. And I was reading from Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10, where it says, we are his workmanship created for good works. And I'm going, huh? I've lived my whole life up to this point thinking that I didn't need to worry about good works because I was saved by grace. But I was created to do good deeds for other people. I can't stop at just grace. That's my salvation. No question about that. But Jesus says the door gets closed on people who don't walk the ways of God. I don't understand it. I don't understand why. I just know that's what it says. So what does that say to me today, or hopefully to all of us? It's important to believe in Jesus. It's important to call him Lord. It's important to spend time with him. But if all we do is spend time with him and our life does not change, he might look at us and say, I never knew you. We also need to make the changes in our life that reflect his teachings so that we are doing what he has commanded us to do. And we're not just saying, Lord, Lord, but we are doing what he asks us to do. We need to turn away from our basic selfishness, which is our natural human tendency, and follow his teaching, which commands us to become selfless, to love others, to show forgiveness and mercy to everyone, including our enemies. It's not always easy. Raises the question of, when you're praying in a time like Russia, Ukraine, are we only praying for the people in Ukraine? Or are we praying for Putin? Are we praying for the people of Russia, the families that are losing lives there, as well as the people in Ukraine? Do we care for our enemies as much as we care for our friends and our family? On a Bill Gaither album that I was listening to a long time ago and have listened to a number of times since, someone said that the people who have thought the most about heaven, have probably made the biggest impact on here. Lady named Janet Pascal sings a song, it's not about now, it's not about here. It's all about then, when we'll have nothing to fear. It's all about then, where the mystery will be clear. The more we look at the future, the more we focus on heaven, the better our lives will be here. Paul said it this way in Colossians chapter 3. He said, we have been lifted up with Christ and gathered with him at the right hand of our Father. Since this is true, we can mentally set our hearts and minds on our being there rather than here. And we can now ask how things are done in heaven so that we can do them that way here on earth. Follow the teachings of Jesus. Believe in him. Seek after him, but seek to do what he's asked us to do. Don't look to the world to bring you answers. Jesus has all the answers we need. Our worth and our value in this world revolves around status and health. But Jesus doesn't ask us to be a part of that. He asks us to find our real worth in the sacrifice of love and doing good for others, doing what's best for them. So I encourage you to find your peace and your contentment following the teachings of our Lord. Look forward to that great day. We're going to sing hymn